Okay, so 10.6 is where we talked about the circumference and arc length. So circumference is C equals pi r, or sorry, 2 pi r, or C equals pi times d. So r is your radius, we have to double it when we get the radius, and then d is the diameter, which we just have to multiply by pi. Then we talked about arc length. So if we wanted to find the length and not the measure, because the measure is the one that's the degrees, if we want to find the length of an arc, like the length of the pizza crust, something like that, then we do the measure of the arc over 360 times 2 pi r, or the measure of the arc over 360. Oh, sorry, we haven't done this yet. Just kidding. Hang tight. Oh, no, we did do this. Yes. I'm sorry. Yes, we did. This is arc length. Okay. Then we did, so this is measure of over 360 times 2 pi r, or measure over 360 times pi d, but usually we use 2 pi r. Then in 10.7, we did the area of the circle, and that's pi r squared. Today we're going to talk about area of a sector, so that's what we're going to finish with. Okay, so number 1 says A, find the circumference, and B, find the area of the circle. So the circumference part was from 10.6. The area part is from 10.7. So again, circumference, they're giving me the radius. So they're giving me r is 5. I want to use C equals 2 pi r. So C would equal 2 times pi times the radius, which is 5. And multiplication can be moved in any order. So I can move this to be 2 times 5 times pi, which is going to give me 10 pi. It would be feet, not feet squared, because it's circumference, which is like perimeter. And so that's A. And then B says the area of the circle. So area is pi r, which is 5, squared, pi times 25, or 25 pi. This time it would be feet squared because it's area. Questions on that one? All right, then number 2 said find the circumference in the area of the circle with a diameter of 14 inches. Keep the answers in terms of pi. So for A, when I'm asking for circumference, now I'm going to change what I use. I would use pi times the diameter, which means I just have to multiply pi times 14, or 14 pi. And that's it. That's all you need for circumference. For B, which is the area, I would have to do pi r squared. So I'm going to have to take this diameter, which is 14, and cut it in half, making r 7. And then I would do pi times 7 squared, or pi times 49, which becomes 49 pi. Inches squared would be the unit. Questions on that one? Okay, then 3 and 4 say find the length of the arc measure. Find the length, that should be find the length of the arc of the following arcs. So for each one, we want to use the formula. That is the measure of the arc over 360 times 2 pi r. So the first thing we're going to do is identify what would be the degree measurement on the arc. That's the measure that's going to go over the 360. So if I look at number 3, this arc is what we're trying to find. The measure is going to match the angle that's formed by it. So if that's a right angle, that means that this is 90 degrees. That means this is 90 degrees as well. So then it becomes 90 over 360 times 2 pi r, which is the radius, is 7. Now I can actually reduce 90 goes into 360 4 times. So this would be 1/4 times 2. I'm going to put the 7 at the front and the pi all the way at the end. I can make these over 1, over 1, and over 1 so that I remember what stays in the numerator, what stays in the denominator. Did it freeze? Are we good now, Jordan? Yeah, okay. All right, so the 2 here can go into the 4 twice. And then all the numerators, if I look at all the numerators, I've got 1 times 1 times 7 times pi. So it would just be 7 pi in the numerator. Look at the denominator, and it's 2 times 1 times 1 times 1. So 2 is the only thing in the denominator. You also have the option, as long as you keep pi as pi, you have the option to multiply the rest of them out. So I could have just multiplied straight across on the top, straight across on the bottom, and I would have ended up with 3.5 pi. So I will take either one of those answers, either the simplified fraction form or the decimal form. Just make sure you keep pi as pi. So don't use pi as 3.14. And because this is a length, these would both be centimeters. So if I did that from the beginning, 90 over 360 times 2 times pi times 7, what I would do is multiply out 90 times 2 times 7. I'm going to push pi all the way to the end, and then take that number and divide it by 360. And when you type that into the calculator, if you do 90 times 2 times 70 in your calculator, 90 times 2 times 70, you get 12,600, and then divide that by 360, and there's your 3.5. Wait till I do that right. 90 times 2 times 70 divided by 360. Sorry, I don't know why I had 70 there. It would be 90 times 2 times 7. There, makes sense. 90 times 2 times 7, and that's 1260, not 12,000. And there we go. There's your 3.5, and then again, just make sure you bring the pi down at the end. So you can, again, use either one. If you're comfortable reducing the fraction, you can reduce the fraction. If you'd rather multiply it out, that's fine too. Questions on that one? Good morning, Lester. I need to see your camera. Thank you, sir. We are on the warm-up. All right, for number 4, we're trying to find the measure of this arc here, or the length of that arc. The measure of it is 120 over 360 times 2 times pi times r, which is 4. So again, I can put these over 1, over 1, over 1 to remind me that those are numerators. 120 goes into 360 3 times, so I can reduce that. And I end up with 1/3 times 2 over 1 times 4 over 1 times pi. I'm going to push all the way to the end. I can multiply out all my numerators, 1 times 2 times 4, which is 8. All my denominators, 3 times 1 times 1, which is 3. And put the pi at the end. That's an option. Or I do 2 times 4 divided by 3, which is 2.67 pi. So again, I'll give you either option. Your quiz, which is you're gonna do like almost like a take-home quiz on Friday. You're gonna have the option. It's gonna be open-ended. So you're gonna have the option to either leave it as a simplified fraction, or as a decimal, as long as you keep pi in your answer. All right, here are the solutions. This is the first part, which was the circumference and the arc length. So 24 is 20 pi, 25, 6 pi, 27, 14 pi. I think they're messing with me now. I think they know I'm trying to teach and they're like just banging right directly over me. All right, number 30. Any questions on 24, 25, 27? Okay, so for those you needed your circumference equation, that's obviously something if I was going to create a reference sheet for the quiz and try to condense your notes, I would definitely include the circumference formulas, the arc length formulas, the area formulas, and then today we're going to add on the area of a sector formula. So there's 4 things you definitely want to keep on your, like almost like a formula sheet. Okay, 30 became the arc length. 30 is 35 over 10 pi, which would be the same thing as 3.5 pi if you divided it. 31 is 8 pi. 32 is 27 pi. 34 is 23 divided by 2 pi, or 23 over 2 pi, or 11.5 pi. Sorry, say that again, Jordan. 30, sure. So 30, my arc measure, so remember we're doing the measure, over 360 times 2 pi r. So the measure is 45 because we're trying to find this arc here. So 45 over 360 times 2 times pi times r, which is 14. So 2 would be over 1, pi would be over 1, 14 would be over 1. So now 360 is actually divisible by 45. I can reduce that. So I'll show you 2 ways to do it. One is reduce it, right? So this would be actually 1 and this is 8. Now I've got 1/8, 2 over 1. I'm going to put the 14 over the front and I'm going to bump the pi to the end. Then I can say 2 goes into 8 4 times. And 14 and 4 are both divisible by 2, 2 and 7. So I end up, the numerators are just 7, denominator just 2 pi. Did I not reduce that before? Hang on. Oh yeah, because both of these are divisible by 5. That would be 7 over 2. 7 over 2 pi. That should have been reduced. So this would have been the right answer. Okay? That's one way to do it, is simplify as you go. The second way is multiply out straight across all your numerators. So if I had 45 over 360, and then I had 2, and then I had 14, and then I would bump the pi to the end, I would multiply 45 times 2 times 14, and my numerator is 1260, and my denominator, 360 times 1 is just 360, pi still at the end. And then I would do 1260 divided by 360, and I get 3.5. So either one of those is fine. I'll take either one, again, as long as pi is stuck to the end. So this answer should have been reduced to 7, that's a 7 over 2 pi. Good, Jordan? Yeah, okay. All right, so then any other questions, 31, 32, or 34? The arc length. Okay, then the bottom came your area. So number 7 was 9 pi meters squared. Number 8, 30.25 pi centimeters squared. Number 9, 0.7225 pi. If you rounded that, that's okay. Like if you wrote it as 0.73 pi, that's okay too. If this was like a quiz, I'll tell you what to round to. Probably 2 decimal places, but it'll tell you what to round to. And then number 10 is pi over 9 inches squared. Questions on any of those? 8, sure. So 8, this 11 is your diameter, which means the radius would be 11 divided by 2, or 10, or 5.5. Let's try that again. 5.5. So that's my radius, right? So then when I write my equation, it's A equals pi 5.5 squared. So without a calculator, you'd have to multiply out 55 times 55. And then there's 2 places. But with a calculator, you just multiply it out. 5.5 times 5.5, and you get that same thing, 30.25, and you're going to multiply that times pi. And it's centimeters squared. So the catch there is that the 11 that's given to you is the diameter and not the radius, so you have to cut it in half. Number 10, sure. All right, so again, same thing. This time they give you the diameter, right? This 2/3 is your diameter. So if I want to find the radius, I have to divide 2/3 by 2. It's a fraction, so when we divide fractions, we multiply by the reciprocal. Keep, change, flip. So that's the same thing as multiplying by a half. The 2's would cancel, and I end up with a 1/3. So a 1/3 is a half of 2/3, which should make sense. That's my radius. Then the area would be pi r squared. 1/3 times 1/3 is 1/9. So this becomes 1/9 pi, or pi over 9. So I would have taken the answer either way. Either of these would have worked. And if you had done 1 divided by 9, it would have been 0.11 pi. I actually would have taken that too. Any other questions on the homework? So this is like 3/4. Well, this plus what we already did, the circumference and no, just the circumference, because everything else is on here. The measurements of the angles, the naming of the angle, of the arcs, that kind of stuff, that's on your quiz, plus this stuff, plus what we're going to do today. So this is about half of what's on there. All right, so go ahead and get the notes open for 10-7 part 2. This is the last bit of what we're going to cover new this week. Okay, 10-7 part 2 is areas of circles and sectors. So we did the circles part yesterday, or Monday. Now we're going to do the area of the sector. That's what's left to do. So what is the sector of a circle? It's a fractional part of the area of the circle. So it's a part of the area. If I actually took like a pizza slice and I asked you to find the area, that would be like finding the area of a sector. If I took a pie and cut out a piece of it and I asked you to find the area of it, that would be the area of the sector. Just the crust is the length. So that's the difference between length and area of the sector, is that the arc length is just the crust, but the area of the sector is the entire piece of the pie. So if I wanted to find the area of this entire arc here, that sector, that's the area of the sector. If I asked you just the length of this arc, now you're doing arc length. So the arc length is a portion of the circumference, while the area of the sector is a portion of the area. Notice that the sides are radii, or the plural of radius, right? These would both be the same length. If this is 5, this is 5, because the radius is the same no matter where it is. And then the other part that bounds it is the intercepted arc. So to find the area, you need the same piece of information that you needed to find the circumference. You just plug it into a different formula, which is this. The area of the sector, so the area of the part of the circle, is the measure of the arc over 360 times the area of the circle, or times pi r squared. So this is, again, area of the sector. If I want to find the area of that, then I'm going to do the measure of the arc over 360, just like I do for arc length, but instead of multiplying it by the circumference, we're going to multiply it times the area. So again, if you're setting up a reference sheet for your quiz, you would want to do how to name an arc, how to classify it as minor, major, semicircle, how to find the measure of it, and then the arc length, circumference, area, and area of a sector. So those 4 formulas. All right, so an example would be something like this, right? Find the area of the shaded sector and leave your answers in terms of pi. So we want to find the area of just this part of your circle. So I'm going to do the area of the sector equals the measure of the arc over 360 times pi r squared. So the measure of the arc is here, that's 72, over 360 times pi times the radius, which is 15, squared. Now you've got to be careful to make sure that you square the 15 before you do anything to reduce 15. So 15 squared is 225. This becomes 72 over 360 times pi times 225. And again, you have 2 choices. One is try to simplify the 72 over 360. 72 actually goes into 360 5 times, so this would be 1/5. I'd get 1/5 times 225 over 1 times pi. And then 225 is divisible by 5. It's 45. And this would be 45 pi. That's one way to do it. The other way is line up all your numerators. So it's 72 over 360 times 225 over 1 times pi. And multiply out 72 times 225. Divide that by 360, and you get 45, and the pi's at the end. So either way, you get the same answer, and you can choose which way to do it. It's okay. Questions on that one? Okay, example 2, find the area of the shaded sector. Leave your answers in terms of pi. This time, we're finding the area of this little sector. The measure of this angle is 75, which means the measure of this arc is also 75 degrees. So the area of the sector equals the measure of the arc over 360 times pi r squared. So it'd be 75 over 360 times pi times 9 squared. Actually, let me put the squared on the inside so we remember we're squaring that 9. So I'm going to write 75 over 360 times 81 over 1 times pi. Push the pi all the way to the end. Now 75 doesn't go evenly into 360, so it's kind of how you choose to do this. You can reduce them, right? They're both divisible by 5. I can do 75 divided by 5. This is 15. And 360 divided by 5, that's 72. I can even reduce that again because 3 goes in both of those, and it'd be 5, and it'd be 24. Now I've got 5 over 24 times 81 over 1 times pi. And this is where it gets a little tricky because you can reduce it again. 24 and 81 are both divisible by 3. It would go 8 times and 27 times. So it'd be 5 over 8 times 27 times pi. And 5 times 27 is 135 over 8 pi. So that's one way to do it. The other way, and this time maybe a little bit easier because that simplifying was so complicated, is to take the 75 over 360, the 81 over 1, so this is after you square it. Multiply out your numerators, so 75 times 81 is 6,075. Multiply out your denominators, 360 times 1 is 360. Push pi to the end, and then divide 6,075 by 360, and I get 16.875 pi, or 16.88 pi, which would be the same thing I would get if I did 135 divided by 8. This would also be 16.875. So either one of these answers is acceptable. Do whatever makes the most sense for you. So if you're not so great at that cross simplification, or stop cross simplifying, then stick to your calculator and let your calculator do the work for you. Yes, you need pi in both, but then it would be what's inches squared. That I'm not gonna like nitpick about the measurement, like the actual units, but pi has to be in both. Is that what you meant, Izzy? Okay, yeah, it's got to be part of both answers. Questions on that one? Okay, last example, example 3 says, what's the area of sector RST, and leave your answer in terms of pi. So this time it's not giving you it actually shaded in, it's giving you the name of it, RST, right? So go to your circle and you see R is here, S is here, and T is here. So that's what it's bound by, R, S, and T, and that tells you that that's the sector that you're trying to find the area of. So same formula, area of the sector equals the measure of the arc. So this time we're talking about the measure of angle of arc RST over 360 times pi times 9 squared. So I get 84 over 360 times pi times 81, which becomes 84 over 360 times 81 over 1 times pi. And again, 360 is not divisible by 84 evenly, so you can choose to reduce it. We know they're both divisible by 2. You could start there if you wanted to. They're also both divisible by 12, right? So you could say that this divided by 12 is 7, and this divided by 12 is 30. So I'd get 7 over 30 times 81 over 1 times pi. And these are both divisible by 3. And we're here, 7 over 10 times 27 over 1 times pi. 7 times 27, 189 over 10 pi. That's one option, millimeters squared. The other way, and again, probably easier because 84 doesn't go directly into 360, you can also do 84 over 360 times 81 over 1 times pi, and multiply out these two numbers and put them over 360. So 84 times 81, 6,804 over 360 pi, and 6804 divided by 360, 18.9 pi, which is the same thing you would get if you divided this by 10 millimeters squared. Questions on that one? All right, if you'll go to Canvas, you should see an assignment for this evening that says 10.7 part 2 and quiz review, if you'll get that open so we can look at that real fast. Yep. That's all right, Ethan. I don't know how much you missed, but it's on the video. Go ahead, Jordan. Yeah. Here is your assignment that's due on Friday. So the first part is your area of the sector. So this is just those 3 questions, remember. It's the measure of the arc over 360 times pi r squared. So you're going to use that for all 6 of those. And you can either leave it as a simplified fraction with pi, or you can give it to me as a decimal. Keep 2 decimal places. And then also make sure you keep the pi at the end. So pi should still be part of your answer. Okay, so that's for those 6 questions. Then the next couple pages are your quiz review. So I actually left the answer. The file for the quiz will be just like this. You're going to do all of your work. And then you're going to send the file to Canvas. But you'll have 60 minutes from start to finish on that. So you just want to make sure it should not take you near 60 minutes. But you want to make sure that that 60 minutes gives you enough time to upload your file as well. So I would say 50 minutes max to actually finish it, and then give yourself that 10-minute buffer to submit it. Yep. Hang on, let me turn up my volume. Sorry. Like the whole thing. This is what your quiz is going to be like on Friday. So you're going to go into camp, but it's, you can use from 11:30 a.m. on Friday till 8 a.m. on Monday. So it's your time, on your time, that time, an hour. It's like a take-home quiz. So you're going to open it up. You're going to have an hour to complete it and get it resubmitted. All right. So this is homework. The quiz review is homework for Friday, but your answers are on there for the quiz review. So feel free to check them. Okay. You still obviously want to learn how to do them. So you want to do the work. Like things like 1 and 2 don't really require any work, but the other ones that require work, you need to make sure you're showing your work and then checking your answer. And then on Friday, I'll go over any kind of question you've got on this, and we'll practice the actual submission from your to the quiz, because it's not like a regular Notability document where you just submit it to the assignment. You have to submit this to your quiz, so you have to send it as a file, which a lot of you have done before. It's fine. I just want to make sure that we are 100% clear on that process. Yes. On the end of this, and not 2 pages, the last page is the answers for your quiz review. Okay, keep in mind that these you can do rounded, so that can be 196 divided by 3, can also be given as 65.33. 15 divided by 4. This can also be given as 3.75 pi. And this can also be given as 4.5 pi. So those answers you can put either way. But this is going to be really helpful for your quiz. So your quiz that I'm going to assign to you on Friday will be like a take-home quiz. It's a PDF. You're going to open it up. You're going to complete the questions like we did with the last quiz, and you're turning back in that full file, okay? You're going to have to turn in a file this time instead of pictures because there's going to be 2 pages. So we're going to kind of practice that on Friday. I'll give you an assignment so you can make sure that you can practice the submission of the file. But this review is really helpful. It's pretty similar to what your actual quiz will look like, okay? The difference between, I think maybe the last time we did it, is that I'm going to give you an hour from start to finish. So when you click Start Quiz, which can be on your own time, anytime between Friday at 11:30 and Monday morning at 8 a.m., so you want a time in which you can sit down for an hour uninterrupted, and you're going to open up the quiz. It won't take you an hour, but I'm giving you lots of time, okay? You're going to open up the quiz. You're going to get a file.